No. What? No. There is no way he's trying to come back again. Oh. No. There's nothing more for me to say about this guy. It's done. I've said my piece. I've said more than I should have said. All right, well, what the heck is he trying to pull this time?
Just to disclose that you can believe me.
Damn it. I wasn't gonna do this! I legitimately am annoyed that I am sitting down to talk about James Somerton again. To be fair, I've only talked about him as the primary topic once before, but he was also kind of brought up when I did the video on why YouTuber apologies always suck. But he's back. He's back with a new apology, as opposed to the one that was taken down very quickly from when it went up. At time of recording, at least, this one's still up. We'll see by the time I get this out. But, yeah. I'm going to try very hard to not have this be just a drama video. I don't want to do that. I don't want to become that. But I do think that for what he indicates as his intentions for the future, I think it is worth doing an autopsy on this thing, because people who do what he did, and if you are not familiar, here's a video I did earlier, but honestly, the first part of that video is just going to direct you to videos by H-Bomber Guy and Todd in the Shadows. So if you're not up to speed on James Somerton, set aside about 6 hours, watch those videos, then come back. So, you know, just the general facts of what he did. If he's trying to come back on this platform, yeah, he shouldn't be ignored, because he did a lot of damage. And he could conceivably do more if allowed to go unchecked. But I don't want this to be me slamming a guy who I do not know. I am going to go through this. I'm going to point out a lot of problems with it, because there are plenty. But stick with me to the end, and I'll end on something more positive. Because, believe it or not, I actually think that there is a path forward for him. There is a chance at genuine redemption for him. Not like some kind, I'm not being snarky about it. I mean that. I actually mean that. But it also is not where he's currently headed, not fully. If he could pivot, he might be able to pull out of this. If that seems impossible, well, maybe you'll just skip to the end to find out. Otherwise, stick with me.
Foreshadowing is a literary device and...
No. That's not foreshadowing. That was a teaser. I'm a tease. That's what I do. Okay. Let's get into this thing. He opens with a disclosure.
This video is monetized.
I am personally of the opinion that this video should not be monetized, but if it is going to be, yeah, he should say that up front. And having it be the literal first words out of his mouth, well, honestly, that's not the worst thing he could have started with. Again, I don't think this video should be monetized, and in full disclosure, I didn't watch it on his channel because I do not have a desire to contribute to that monetization. If you ever want to watch this, I have put a link to someone who uploaded a mirror of it in an as an unlisted video and did not monetize it. So if you want to see this whole thing, you can go there and see it where I saw it, and it will not contribute to James Somerton. It won't contribute to anybody. The channel that did it is too small to be monetized. So there's that.
But revenue from it will be sent along to H-Bomber Guy's team to be dispersed to the people whose work I plagiarized.
since I don't have an inroad or any way really to contact H-Bomber Guy, I can't reach out to him or his team and verify that he has gotten in touch with them to arrange this. The way he speaks makes it sound like he hasn't yet, and that he plans to do that once he actually like gets the first payment from, you know, this having been monetized. So like in a month, basically. So whether or not he will actually attempt to do that, that's hard to verify. Could he offer receipts over the process of this? He could. Given his ability to keep track of things and properly accredit and even take notes, which even in the most generous reading of things he himself admits to being very bad at, I would not count on us getting receipts. I don't think the intent is horrible. It's very unverifiable. So he talks about the monetization. Now, to his credit, he says the word plagiarism.
To the people whose work I plagiarized.
Not just at the front end, he's going to say it repeatedly. Actually, at a few points where it sounded like he was going to try and talk around it, he would say the word again. So he's definitely not hiding from the word anymore, and he is openly admitting to it. So we're already off to a better start, certainly than how the previous one opened. He also offers a backup plan if H-Bomber Guy's team does not accept funds from him.
If his team won't accept it, I'll be making monthly donations to Wikipedia and TransLifeline going forward.
Again, receipts for these donations would be a good thing to have in his roadmap. He didn't mention that as part of the plan, just his intention to do these things. And words are cheap. So I don't mean to be this much of a dick, James, but you've proven yourself untrustworthy. So people are going to ask for receipts on basically anything you claim to be doing or trying to do or have done. And while under normal circumstances, I might say that's a bit unfair, this is your bed. You made it. You got to sleep in it. You're not being trusted for a reason, and those reasons are your own actions. He made some claims about having gotten in touch with some of the people he stole from and actually spoken with them
to apologize one-on-one instead of a mass apology. I've heard back from a few of them, and they were actually incredibly nice, accepting my apology and just imploring me to do better in the future.
I don't know what to feel about this one, because first of all, if true, and anytime I say the words if true, that is a massive pulsing asterisk next to the word if. But if true, that's not irrelevant information. The problem is his reputation is so smashed at this point that him saying that just becomes suspect in and of itself. Just him saying, I've gotten in touch with some. I mean, he does admit he hasn't gotten in touch with everybody. Some of them he doesn't know how to. Some of them didn't respond back to him. But he is saying that some of them spoke to him and that some of those even accepted his apology with the request that he do better, which, I mean, at the very least, he's not claiming people accepted his apology unconditionally. That gives it a little bit more viability as being true. This is a case where I would say, you know, I've said he's going to have to be prepared to show receipts. This would be a case actually where the better thing to do would not be to show receipts, because then you put specific people on the hook for, like, in some roundabout way vouching for you, and that would have been a really crappy thing to do. So maybe he shouldn't have said that people accepted his apology at all, because including it makes it seem suspect and like, did they? And unless somebody comes forward on their own and is going to say that, you know, that's unverifiable, but also he should not be the one verifying it. It was good that he didn't name names in this particular case. For once, it was good that he did not identify and give credit. That was appropriate in this case, but it also weakens the claim, which is already something we have to take right now at time of recording on his word. And his word ain't worth much. Which kind of brings us to the overall issue with just him trying to apologize at this point and what he's trying to apologize for. We can't trust you, James. You have proven that. And even coming forward after the fact and admitting to everything, which you're not really doing. I'll get to that. The thing that we learned was we can't trust you. It doesn't matter how you present this stuff. And as I said, some of the stuff he's presenting it, well, definitely better than last time and decently under the circumstances. But the circumstances are like, dude.
What are you doing? Why are you here?
Well, he does say why he's here, but again, we'll get back to it. Moving through. Now, he tries to somewhat explain at least a headspace that led to the plagiarism. Now, how you take any of this depends on whether or not you believe anything he says. And honestly, there isn't a lot of reason you should. There are going to be some instances where I will say whether or not I think there is any merit to taking him at his word, or at the very least, it's not worth trying to debunk it. But like, just understand, you kind of can't. But that having been said, he does offer a mentality that led to part of the problem, or actually led to a lot of problems. It led to an overall problem with his just presentation in general, but also to some of the specific things.
I tried to be a voice for every member of the queer community, but that was a failed endeavor before it even started. I can never really truly understand the life experiences of other far more put upon members of the queer community. This is one of the reasons that I would use their own words.
Like everything he says, this may or may not be true, but this is kind of a classic manipulation tactic, which is to speak to the purity of his intentions regardless of his actions. There's one tiny piece of what he says in this section that I actually think was something worth saying, not necessarily by him, but he points out that
being a cis white man, I thought I might be able to win over some people who wouldn't otherwise listen.
The uncharitable version of that is he, a cisgender white man, felt he was entitled to just take these opinions and present them. But if we're going to be generous, which you do not have to be, but if we're going to be, there is some truth in the idea that at the very least other cisgender white guys might be more willing to listen to him than someone like me or a queer person of color or someone who's transmasculine or any number of things. There's some actual truth in that. Of course, the way to counteract that is for you to not just regurgitate what other people said without proper citation, but to actually bolster them. He has a bit where he talks about like shouting people out on Twitter, which was a very weird inclusion because he mentions he did it when he had a smaller following.
I often shared other queer creators on Twitter, but this was when I only had, 800, 1,000 Twitter followers.
Which seems to imply that it was something he used to do, but then stopped doing as he got big. I don't know. Regardless, if you want to bolster other voices, yeah, you can and you should, but you do it by literally bolstering them, not stealing their words and slapping their name in the front end under an inspired by or based on the works of, and not indicate what the hell it was they did. And sort of jumping further down, he does actually demonstrate an actual understanding of why his dropping names at the front end was wrong.
Putting their name in the opening credits doesn't tell anyone where their work is in the video. Nobody can say, oh, I really liked that opinion, or wow, that's a really, smart observation. I want to read more from this person. And then, to find something you found interesting, you have to go play detective. He
does at least describe what appeared to be, in his own words, an understanding of why that wasn't okay, even in the most generous reading of what he was doing. So at the very least, he's come to an understanding. Whether or not he actually believes in his own culpability, I don't know. I can't speak to the guy's thoughts or mine, but he does demonstrate at least being able to say his an understanding of why some of what he did was wrong, and including some specific things that he used to use to defend his taking from other people before we knew the extent of it. coming back to the idea of him sort of speaking for other people. And he acknowledges that that was a foolish thing for him to do at all, which is true. Like, I'm not going to say there's no value in somebody speaking to the struggles, trials, and tribulations of a group that they are not a member of. I've done that a few times with a few videos. Videos in which I have, at the very least, consulted people who were part of the groups whose life experience I was trying to speak to. But broadly speaking, he's not wrong that that was a wrong thing for him to do philosophically. It is unfortunately a little bit muddying the waters because while that's true, that wasn't a great way for you to approach your work. The problem was you stole and you lied. Now, you could make an argument that this mentality led him to these other people's work. And then there's other stuff that he talks about as to the plagiarism itself. So maybe it's slightly relevant, but it honestly, especially this far at the front end, it feels like muddying the waters. And was it intended to be? I don't know. But this is what it feels like. Now, there's a weird section early on where he spends over 3 minutes apologizing to Jesse Gender.
I'd also like to extend a personal apology to Jesse Earl, better known as Jesse Gender.
Now, Jesse's a friend of mine, so I knew what had gone on. I actually knew even before everything blew up and broke because Jesse and I talk every week. I'd picked up what had been going on. And he goes on, again, about 3.5 minutes talking about how nice Jesse is and how sorry he was for how he responded to her. This basically amounted to a Twitter spat, ultimately. It got a little uglier than that. But I'm not going to say he doesn't owe Jesse an apology. He does. But he wasn't, canceled is the wrong word. He didn't become persona non grata in the YouTube space because of the spat with Jesse. He became persona non grata because he stole people's ideas and lied. While I'm not going to say that there was no reason to apologize for Jesse, no, there was. What happened, I'm not going to go over in detail. It's messed up, but it's very strange to put this in this video. Oh, can we talk about the thumbnail real quick? I don't know if Somerton was trying to be clever with this, a measured response, which is a phrase that H Bomber guy who obliterated him has used in some of his most popular videos. I don't know if James thought he was being clever, but this is not the time to try and be clever, dude. No, because it looks like, given everything that's gone on, it just looks like you stole a good title again. And the thing is, I don't have to guess at what Jesse thought about this. I got to ask her.
So for me, there are kind of two things, and I talk about this in larger length in my own video, so go check out that video if you want my much deeper thoughts. But to me, there are two major things with James's apology to me that bug me. The first of which is the fact that just taking the apology on its face, it's hard for me to trust him on it. Like, it comes across as very sincere, and it very well might be sincere, and I really want it to be sincere. I earnestly do want to take it on its face, but just given not only my situation with him, but also the larger situation with his plagiarism, it's just hard for me to trust him in any way, shape, or form when he talks about all of this. And so for me, what I would need to be able to actually trust his word on it would be to have some level of proof of the situation that he's discussing. So what I would need is something like his police report of the death threats that he apparently went to the cops about. Because if he says that, at least, then I can at least be like, okay, these death threats were real. So I can at least trust that the situation was not fabricated. Because he has been known, as H Bomber guy pointed out, to say like, oh, I'm being attacked, and accuse people who are actually making earnest criticisms of plagiarism against him and saying that they're harassing him or attacking him. But if he was getting death threats and it made a police report, I can at least trust that. But until that point, it's hard for me to be like, can I trust what he's saying here? Is this actually sincere? Is this actually based in truth? And I want to believe that, and I want to give him the chance to do that. But as it stands right now, I just can't. I just can't, and I want to, but I can't. And the second thing that bothers me about it is just beyond the apology itself, but it's framing, because he puts it in the first like 5 minutes of his apology video, and throughout the entire video, the only people that he names to apologize to are me, and then Vito, the gay writer who is now dead, who tragically passed away from HIV several years ago, decades ago. I don't know exactly when it was. But it is weird to me that in a video that should be focused on apologizing to people, he only names me and a dead guy, and not any of the people that are still living that he directly stole from. And if he wanted to actually do that work, to be like, look, these are the people that I stole from, go support them. And yes, he may be giving his money to H-Bomber. Yes, he may be trying to do all these things, but it's like, you're not actually apologizing to these people. And to put me at the front feels like you're trying to like apologize to a known creator, and actually clear your own name around a situation where like people were saying, incorrectly saying that you called the cops on me, which did not actually happen. He called the cops on someone from my audience, presumably, who sent him death threats. So it feels like more him trying to clear that up, and then also like, oh, apologize to me, and then not actually take responsibility or like focus on the people that he plagiarized from. So that framing just feels really, really off to me and makes me uncomfortable. It makes me feel a little bit used within the apology. And then other things where other people are talking about, where he talks about the things that he wants to do after this, like the YouTube video he wants to make, the movies that he wants to make, instead of focusing on the people that he should be apologizing to in a video that's supposed to be an apology video. It all just kind of makes me uncomfortable generally.
Also, additionally, it is weird that he says he was reaching out to privately apologize to people he stole from, but is opting to publicly apologize to Jesse. Now, even before this, he started referencing his former roommate and co-writer, Nick. And also, again, after this, he uses the term we, what we wanted for the channel. I think the excessive use of we is not great. It's not ideal. There have been accusations in the past, or at least floating of theories, that James might have been setting up Nick to be the fall guy. And there are things that happen later on in this video that don't help his case if that was not what he was doing. One of the major recurring issues here is interesting because it's actually going to be the subject of a video maybe next month. I'm still working on it. But that's finances. The financial reality of trying to do YouTube is messy and complicated. But he talks about the pressure that he felt initially from having had that quick burst of success and wanting to basically grab the bull by the horns and launch into things, strike while the iron's hot and all that. And that initially that, and then later a need for steady, stable income dictating why he was making things as frequently as he did.
I felt like I had a short period of time to get the next videos out as soon as possible, which is why so little work was put into the writing of them.
I.e., he didn't write, he just stole. One of the things that's interesting is earlier on, he seems to just admit that, yeah, I stole because stuff needed to happen quickly. But then later on, he'll talk about the plagiarism in a bit more of a dodgy way. He'll talk about having done copy and pasting from sources with the intent to go in and change it like it was supposed to be a springboard for other stuff.
My intention at the time was to use these as a jumping off point once Nick and I sat down to edit the script.
And he has this section where he talks about having memory issues. I don't have a problem calling this guy a liar, but when it comes to talking about his own personal health, I'm a little bit more iffy about calling him a liar on that. What I will say is, if that's the case and you knew that, and you had a co-writer in Nick by that point, then you should have been accounting for your memory issues. You should have been taking the notes and marking things in a way so that you knew this hasn't been changed yet. This is still what I copy pasted originally. We need to fix this. And if you weren't doing that, then you weren't accounting for things like, speaking of someone with ADHD, I don't have memory issues, but I do have focus issues. And I've had to learn how to work with my brain instead of against it. There are things you can do. You chose to not do them. And also, this is sort of one of the early sort of sneakily implying of throwing Nick under the bus, because Nick was writing by this point. So, okay, you weren't catching it. Was he? Was he even trying? I don't know. That's assuming Nick knew how much was just being copy pasted. That's debatable in the first place. Around the 9-minute mark, I did note he was continuing to use the word plagiarism. He didn't just use it at the beginning and then dance around it, as I said. So that legitimately good. Don't hide from the word. It's what you did.
And so much was taken from other places, plagiarized.
Now, I mentioned he talked about just doing opening credits and putting people's names there. And while he does illustrate later on that he understands why that isn't okay, he still tries to hide behind it because he talks about it as if it was something he did from the very beginning, when we know it was something he started doing after he started getting called out for stuff. And it wasn't something he did in his earliest videos. And in fact, there was the Disney-related one, the Evil Queens one. He repeats in this that he had permission from the author of the book that he heavily plagiarized for that video.
In some cases, I did get permission, like with the Evil Queens Disney video.
The way he words it here, he is claiming that this guy saw the video before it was public, and then he requested to be credited. But we know that's not true. The video was public without the accreditation. After that, you then got in touch with him and replaced that with a version that did properly credit him, but you didn't give him like a preview before it was public. You went public, got called on it, and then got permission. So he's jumbling the timeline, and he's still doing something that he did before, which is to take a version of events that makes him look better and claim that's always what happened. He is still sticking to the story that he always got permission before the video went up to adapt that book. He didn't. We know he didn't, but he's still saying it. Now, I said finances is a recurring thing. So as I said, there's the notion of just trying to have a stable, steady income for both himself and Nick, who he was splitting revenue with. Or at least claims he was splitting revenue. Nick was obviously getting paid in some manner. Exactly how that worked, he is saying here that it was split revenue. Now, he talks about other financial things that happened later, like around, say, his mother passing away. And he makes claims about her life insurance policy not being paid out for reasons that, if true, big asterisks by the word if true, are utter BS. And I hope that the insurance company, if they actually did that, faces hefty scrutiny and possible penalties and legal scrutiny for that, because that was BS. That's if true. But the thing with the finances is the fact that he did not seem to have a good balance of his income and what he needed and what he was trying to do. And he kept getting into new situations where the finances didn't balance. He talks about moving back to Ontario, which he effectively blames on Nick. Again, feels a bit like a throwing under the bus thing. I mean, I say blames, but he does basically say that the reason he moved to a more expensive area was because of Nick.
This is also when he told me that he'd be moving back to Ontario permanently soon, as he wanted to live closer to family and live in a bigger city with more opportunities.
And all this also factors into the funding for his independent films that were supposed to happen. Telos. I'll get back to Telos. Stick a big pin in that. We will come back to Telos. But the thing is, the financial reality of this job is there is pressure. And there is pressure to put stuff out on a regular basis. And like, I get that. I do videos on this channel at least every week, every Saturday. I don't think I've missed one in years. And I need to do that. I need the income. Even when I put out something that I know isn't going to do that well, I can't have nothing there. I need this income. This plus Patreon. And as I said, I'm going to be doing a video talking about trying to manage the finances of being on YouTube. But like, I get all that. So I live within the means that I have. I'm able to do this partially because of where I live. I don't live in New York City. I don't live in LA. I don't live in Toronto. I don't live in an expensive area. And it's part of what allows me to do this at the pace that I do and the quality that I do it. So this mismanaging of funds, because I do not make anywhere near what James Somerton made off of YouTube or his Patreon. I don't come close, not a fraction. But I'm able to make this my living. And I'm able to keep a steady pace. And I'm able to do it without stealing. But it's also because I live within my means. Because for the amount of money that he would have been making between sponsorship and the AdSense revenue, he was making plenty. It really seems like he did not know how to manage it at all. And that is being generous. If you don't feel like being generous, you say, he just pocketed it and asked for more. Yeah, maybe. Now, I said we come back to Telos. So Telos to me is the most interesting part of this because he talks about his ambitions as a filmmaker. And he talks about starting with a small scale plan, getting way more funding than he anticipated, scaling up the project accordingly, having things not go as smoothly as he wanted. Like he wrote a script that he was really excited about, showed it to Nick, and Nick advised they do a page 1 rewrite. He talks about they then moved to Ontario and they had higher expenses, but they also had access, to a larger pool of filmmakers in that area. But also he lost all kinds of resources that he had. He had access to locations that he could shoot at where suddenly he was going to have to pay for them now. And failing to take this stuff into account, changing a planned film because the first script he wrote was going to take advantage of all the resources that he had where he had been living that he now suddenly didn't have in Ontario, pivoting, coming to a different project, changing that a few times, feeling overwhelmed and just untethered in terms of trying to nail down something because he got all this funding and all this support and he has to do something. The thing is, I can relate to this. And if I'm going to be generous in any way, this is the part that I think has the most credibility. It is possible that the entire Telos project was a scam from the beginning. He just took the money and ran. The thing is, given that he's trying to come back yet again, I think he probably did genuinely want to make a film. And speaking as someone who has other projects and specifically had a Kickstarter to finance me self-publishing a book and have been working on, the book's been out for a while. I'm still trying to edit the audiobook. It will be done this year, I promise. But I've been working on that for years because not only is that a ton of work, I still have to do my regular output. And whether you want to chalk this up to bad resource management or bad time management or all of the above, the story that he tells of I scaled up the project, thought I could manage it, realized I couldn't, and then I was scrambling, that's a story I can understand. It's a story I've lived to a much smaller scale. We're not done talking about Telos because it's actually going to factor into what I want to end talking about, but we're going to move on for now. Or at least we're going to move to a different part of it because I did note that the one time he got kind of spikily defensive was related to Telos, talking about the script for Final Girl, what was originally supposed to be the movie that he was going to film where he was living previously. And he got very defensive at the suggestion that it was plagiarized from an existing novel.
And to those who say that I plagiarized the plot from the novel Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, read the book. It's nothing like the plot of the movie. And the final girl is a trope in horror movies. So if using the final girl trope is plagiarism, then basically everyone who's made a slasher movie since Texas Chainsaw Massacre owes the Tobe Hooper estate some money. But anyway.
Now, on the one hand, I could actually understand if he did write an original script just based off a similar starting premise and concept. Like you can take a starting kernel and do something completely different with it. That is absolutely artistically viable. I can understand if that actually was original work, why he would be so spiky about it. But this is not the venue to get defensive about it, dude. We've caught you lying and stealing stuff. Don't act offended at the idea that you might have stolen somebody's fictional work as opposed to only their essay and fact-based work. You don't have the right to get pissy and act like it is an insult to suggest you might have plagiarized a novel. If you didn't, I understand why it stings to have that suggested, but you don't have any business being all uppity about that. In many ways, this illustrates the true folly of being a liar, because if you stop and you try and do better and tell the truth, people still won't believe you. They can't. You've proven that they can't. And I understand that if you are no longer lying, it is deeply frustrating to not be believed. But that is a situation you created. That is the fallout of being a liar and being caught at it. Now, on the back end of the video, does get into some of the heavier stuff. He addresses the self-harm ideation and attempt that he made. He doesn't go into heavy detail. He does acknowledge that him opening his previous attempt at an apology with that was, well, he calls the apology video itself horrendous.
My honestly horrendous apology video back in December.
Again, if true, the fact that he went through this is not irrelevant, but again, the amount of sympathy he's going to get, it's going to be limited, or at least it's going to be conditional on the fact that, like, dude, we don't know. And he also has some things that he notes about people who he claims saw the H Bomber Guy video. Like, how do you know that, dude? But he claims that people came to his house while he was in the hospital, which could be a play at sympathy, could also be an explanation for why he's moved again, which, as that affects his finances and he's now trying to earn money again, including starting a new Patreon. Yeah, let's tackle that. So he says he's not going to restart his existing Patreon, but instead is going to start a brand new one that people will have to opt into for the first time.
As for my Patreon, everyone can stop worrying about me relaunching it right in time for a billing cycle. That will not be happening. I don't want anyone who either doesn't know about the plagiarism or simply forgot to unsubscribe to get billed. So I'm going to start from zero. I have put together a new Patreon account.
Like, if he's going to have a Patreon, this is what he should be doing. The argument obviously can break down on the idea of, well, he shouldn't have one at all. He shouldn't be trying to get financing for this kind of stuff. Oh, I guess the other thing about financing is, again, and this has to do with his own personal health and disabilities. Again, if true, if asterisks. You know, he talks about difficulties in holding down normal jobs due to some health issues. If that is true, it becomes slightly more understandable that he is trying to get back in people's good graces with this. Doesn't necessarily make it a great idea, but it makes it slightly more understandable as opposed to just, you know, getting a normal job. Again, if true. And yeah, there are tiny amounts of grace I'm going to grant this guy, but it's all very conditional if you hadn't caught on. Now, he also, towards the back end, talks about the videos that he has put back up on his channel. He claims that they are ones written primarily, if not entirely, by Nick, and that there is no plagiarism in them. This is another kind of roundabout way that he is potentially throwing Nick under the bus, because that means that if people dig through these and find plagiarism, then James has already set up for Nick to be the one to be blamed for it. And even though he admits himself to plagiarism that he himself did in this very video, he admits to that, it still sets up a possible future where Nick's stuff is found to be plagiarized too, and then people start to doubt, well, how much did James actually plagiarize? A lot! He plagiarized a lot. But just the idea of putting these things back up with the justification that these ones are okay because they're not plagiarized and were mostly written by Nick. Except that he says he's going to take the revenue from these and donate it to the H Bomber Guy Fund.
As mentioned at the beginning of the video, revenue from these will be going to the H Bomber Guy team to be sent out to the writers I plagiarized from.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Earlier, you said that you split the revenue from these with Nick.
The idea is that they would write the vast majority of the scripts. I would film, voice, and edit the videos, and we'd split the money that came in.
So if the videos that you just put back up on are written primarily, if not entirely, by Nick, shouldn't he be getting the money? You're taking the money from his work and giving it away to fix your problem, your misdeeds. I hope I misunderstood that, because that's kind of messed up. Again, that's assuming that Nick should be let off the hook at all. I don't want to litigate that, but there's reason to have issues with Nick as well, aside from just association with James. Todd in the Shadows video went a bit more into that. Oh, and speaking of that, while there is very open acknowledgement of H. Bomber Guy's video, and as I said, the use of the word plagiarism repeatedly, only briefly at the tail end and obliquely does James bring up the idea of, well, in his words, misinformation.
I know that misinformation made its way into our past videos.
Reality, lies. Lies that he said. Because H. Bomber Guy's video focused on the plagiarism, Todd in the Shadows' video focused on the lies. And these were lies that some of the things that he cited, not necessarily the most egregious things, but some of the videos that Todd cited as having provable lies in them are some of the ones that are back up. And it's interesting to me that James sort of just kind of talked around this one. He didn't with the plagiarism. He owned up to that to a degree, but he does try and talk around the lies, and he tries to present it as like, we didn't mean to give misinformation. At my most generous, the nicest interpretation that I could have of the amount of just wrong information that he had was that he would say things that he probably believed to be true without checking to see if they were. And at best, that is horrifically lazy work. That is at my most generous that I could be, because it wasn't just a matter of, oh, well, you know, I heard something and it turned out to be wrong. Some of the instances that Todd in the Shadows found, he found the sources you were pulling from and you still had stuff wrong. So it wasn't even that your source was wrong. You made stuff up. You did, dude. And you don't properly acknowledge that. You really only deal with the plagiarism. And while you do use the word and acknowledge it openly, repeatedly, whole swaths, you talk about Jesse, where there was not an issue of plagiarism there. You talk about the financial issues in Telos, where plagiarism came up briefly, at least as a possibility of that, but could not be proven. So even as you admit it, you're shifting around and talking about all these other aspects as much as possible. And maybe with the intent of adding context, but the context doesn't change what you did. Now, I said at the beginning that there is actually a path of redemption here. I think there could be, but I also don't think he's on it right now. And this last bit I'm going to address directly to James. Not that I think he's watching, at least I hope not. Good grief, I really hope he isn't going around watching all the videos of people that people are making about him, other than, you know, the Todd in the Shadows and the H. Bomber Guy ones. Like, you should see those to understand the scope of what we understand you did. But like, watching everybody's reactions and breakdowns or anything that I've made about this, like, nobody should be watching that much content about themselves. Like, that's bad for your mental health. And that's the thing. I don't wish him ill. I do not want him back on this platform, though. So I said redemption. What did I mean? Well, Telos. James, here's what you need to understand. You are not welcome here. You said in your video that you had an intention to release more videos, including one that you claim will be wholly original. We don't want it. Don't upload it. I'm sorry if these are things you are passionate about that you genuinely want to do. You have burned that bridge. We cannot trust you in this space. Even if you make the best video essay or documentary or whatever that anyone has ever seen, every citation perfect, everybody credited, amazing original work, just a monumental achievement in online film content. It won't matter because we can't trust you. And even if we watch it and we can't find plagiarism, we can't trust that somebody won't find that you've plagiarized stuff later on. You can't come back here. You can't. You cannot come back to this space to do the thing that you lied and stole in order to do. Even if you don't lie and steal to do it anymore, we can't trust you. You have no credibility, no grace, no wiggle room, no benefit of the doubt, none in the video essay space. But you do have a tiny bit in the realm of original, fictional work. It's actually to your benefit right now. The fact that Telos had not yet put out a product when everything blew up. Because while there were suspicions from H-Bomber Guy about whether or not you had plagiarized your notion for your Final Girl movie, that was unprovable. We don't know if you would have plagiarized or stolen for your creative works. If you want the path forward, abandon your plans to release any video essay, whether it's something that was completed before all this went down or something new. Don't do it. We can't trust you. We don't want it. But if you put your heart and soul into an original script, an original short film, and whatever part in it that you intend to take, because I don't know, what are you going to do? Write, direct, cinematography, editing, all of it, some of it? Hire people who know what they're doing for the parts you don't know, whatever. If the end result is good, if you display genuine talent in the creation of fiction, in the creation of visuals to propel a story, edited together seamlessly and shot well, lit well, all knit together thematically in a way that speaks to people. If you make a good film, that is not something that we can just dismiss. Now, will some people still not accept that? Yes. You burn so many bridges, there are people who are going to want to see you fail at literally anything you do. But if you can create a good movie that is not stolen and not plagiarized, that is a new venue. That is a new area. And that is where talent is put up or shut up. Because while you may have thought that the main thing you brought to the table with your video essays was your presentation, ultimately, I hope you now realize that the main thing that you were doing was conveying ideas, but those ideas weren't yours. But when it comes to the filmmaking, you have the chance to display actual talent that you could not be faking. Even if you stole somebody's idea for a way to compose a shot, you still have to know how to do that. You still have to know how to set it up, light it, block it, direct the actors. If you get a good end result, that is something that could be yours. Because we can't trust you with the truth. We cannot trust you to deliver us facts. And it's not just a matter of presentation, whether you do it documentary style or video essay style. We cannot trust you to give us facts. So you should instead pivot to giving us fiction. I very honestly believe that if you have actual talent and actual drive, that is the way you need to move forward. You need to abandon the idea of ever coming back for video essays. Don't do it. Even if it's perfect, it's going to be scrutinized to hell and people will still not believe you. But if you show filmmaking talent, people just can't go, well, he lied. How do you lie to create a good shot, to light a scene well, to edit something together well? Do the work yourself. Don't steal it. Do the work. Give credit to whoever else you need to help you, because filmmaking takes a lot of people. Put out a good piece. Because, like I said, I don't wish you harm. But I don't want you here. You have no business being here. Not anymore. And you have a profound opportunity to go and make something that you said you wanted to make. Put all your effort there and try. Now, if I can be brutally honest, all this is moot if you make a film and it sucks. If you make a film and the writing is trite and the actors are not well directed and the lighting sucks and the editing is jarring, then I don't know what to tell you. But you at least have the chance. Don't try and prove yourself trustworthy at the stuff that we know you lied and stole. Prove yourself talented in an area that has not been completely wrecked by your name. And again, lots of people will still not want whatever you offer. But that is the closest to a clean slate you will ever get. And that's where you need to go. So there we go. Those are my thoughts and my advice that will not be taken because he says he wants to put out more videos. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. You shouldn't do it. But it would be a very cool story if he turned this around by embracing fiction. He wouldn't be the first one to try. That's what Stephen Glass tried to do. It didn't really work out for him long term. If you don't know who that is, go find the movie Shattered Glass. It's fantastic. Hayden Christensen is amazing in it. And it might as well be the James Somerton story. It's an incredible movie. But anyways, thanks so much for listening. I really don't want to ever talk about this guy again, but I think I wanted to offer the slimmest little olive branch that I could. Because there is a way he could go that wouldn't require all of us to be like shouting at him to go away. Because YouTube video essays, man, go away. Just go away. Do something else. You have the chance. Do that. Whatever your thoughts are on any of this, no personal attacks or threats. But whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. However you can help me that way, it is of great assistance. But even if you can't, links down in the description for other stuff that I do, but don't worry too much about it. What I really want you to remember, you are beautiful. You are valid. And you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And I'd like to thank my highest supporting patrons, Robin Moore, Zubin Lukfula, Goddess Elida, Oliver B., Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Geek Filter, Linda Walters, Jen, Anticade808, Becky Sparks, Frenobulax the Poodle, Robin Powell, T-Love, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pal Barabajoggle, and Mara G. Yes, we do have new rats in the house. Whoa, you want it? We actually have two. This is Brownie. I couldn't get Sprite to come out, but say hi. Thanks for the support.